Esposito, thanks so much for having us at your home and showing us this guitar. So, can you tell us where you grew up?
I was born in Los Angeles, California. The last child of New Orleans 7th Ward family that left in 1957. My chops are slipping, excuse me. I've lived in New Orleans since 1999, end of 98.
Okay. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the guitar you have in your hand?
This guitar was previously owned by Danny Barker. It's a 1935 Epiphone. It's largely pictured. It's a guitar that Danny pretty much had all of his career in New York, and it came back to him with him when he returned in 1965. It came into my possession a few months following Hurricane Katrina. It was given to me by Jason Berry, writer, historian. He was digging through Danny's archive room at the time that I happened to come upon the house. It was a situation perhaps not uncommon, 3 to 4 months after the storm at that time, on a Sunday afternoon. You might just go around driving in old neighborhoods. And I was with a friend, George Blackman, another great vocalist and recording engineer, producer here in New Orleans. And I asked him to drive down Sears Street. Danny and Lou lived at 1277 Sears Street, just above 610 off of St. Bernard Avenue. He didn't want to go down the street because he was convinced he was going to get a roofing nail. I got out the truck and I walked down, and at this point, this neighborhood, there were tumbleweeds. You know, it was you say dead as a doornail. No one there. I came upon the house, which I had been to a few times previously, visiting Danny and Lou's daughter, Sylvia Barker. I came upon the block, and on the right side of the house there was a driveway, a covered drive porch, the fence, and laid out on the sidewalk were some video cassettes, beta video cassettes. This was not an uncommon sight either. People, you know, you tried to save anything you thought might be of some data, and yeah. So I thought maybe somebody who had come to gut the house, Sylvia had paid someone to get the house. She lived in Rochester at the time. I thought maybe they had, for some reason, picked these. Anyway, I wasn't sure. I walked up the carport and I heard voices, and yeah, they were going through his archive room. And he hands me the guitar. He says, "Here." Michael Tizeron turned around and kind of looked at me and like, "What are you doing here?" It made it. It was in, you know, jigsaw puzzle pieces by that point. I lifted it out the case, all of this came apart. All of the bindings. It's a two-piece design. And so both of the halves had come apart, the neck had come apart. These guitars were constructed with horse glue in their time. So as it sat under floodwater for several weeks, you know, yeah, ridiculous.
Hey, I'm sorry, can you hold up 1 second? I just want to change the setting on here. I have to stop recording to change the setting, sorry. To interrupt the flow.
Why don't we pick it up? I'll say that the guitar was repaired, or at least assembled, reassembled by Sidney Snow.
Go ahead. I'm on.
I eventually brought this guitar to Sidney Snow, another musician of many years here in New Orleans, who repairs guitars, does all kinds of things to them as sort of a sideline. And he offered to put this together, at least. He was assured that he could return it to some level where it was a guitar again. It's limited in terms of its playability.
So, what are some of these photos that you're going through?
This is Mr. Barker, probably around, I'd say, 1945, 1950, and that's the guitar. This is Danny and Blue Barker's promo shot, probably around 1985. And the guitar is pictured there as well.
In this book?
This is his posthumous release, Buddy Bolden and the Last Days of Storybook.
And of course, Danny Barker, not only this great musician and mentor, but also was curator of the Jazz Museum in its early years. And we're excited to know that this guitar is going to go to Detroit and the Danny Barker Foundation. And so we're grateful for that, and also the idea that it may come on display at the Jazz Museum very soon. So we're grateful for that. And,
well, Danny Barker was an American genius. With not more than a high school education, he never ceased to accumulate knowledge. He had what I describe as a atavistic intellect. He was never satisfied. He was always searching to find the essence of what jazz is. And he had a very clear viewpoint formed over many years of living his life and living with other jazz musicians. He was also a keen observer, and he took note of his co-workers' lives and what they were going through. And so he had a whole ethos of what jazz is. Jazz is a lifestyle, an attitude one lives by.
Well said.
So yes, Danny Barker's story, I believe, is entering its next phase. I believe he should be studied in jazz history all over the world. He is unique in his role as not perhaps one of the superstars of jazz history, but infinitely valuable for his insights, which he recorded, but not only in written form, but other forms, other documentation.
Well, I think we'd like for Detroit to accept the guitar. Is that okay if we do that?
Way overdue. But glad we're all here living to make it.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed.
I don't usually look like this, and
Looking good.
the irony of ironies is, when I first met you, you were still cutting heads.
Well, Katrina's back.
Yeah.
She ended that career.
Glad we made it, man.
Unfortunately, we had to meet with masks on, but we're here. And that's a great thing about it. It's in the land of the living. Opportunity to share the gifts that we have, you know.
It tells a story. I say leave it like this, put it on display, and let the story
It speaks for itself.
unfold.
It speaks for itself. With its time and its age, it speaks for itself.
Now catch it. Okay, this tailpiece, called the trapeze tailpiece, it's not the original tailpiece. And in characteristic fashion, Sidney Snow, he has a little fish lure stuck under here because it was rattling. Danny would do things like that. When I first saw this guitar, it had like a composite set of strings, you know, a mismatched set of strings. Richard Byrd, who recorded Save the Bones, told me that, yeah, Danny would be repairing his strings before a session. And like when I got, still, even after the flood, it had a telephone cord for a shoulder strap.
But I remember the incident where Danny came on a gig with his banjo in a college band.
Well,
You know, so that
irony of ironies, I'll give you one of my old gig bags to take this home with.
okay.
But thank you for your service.
And thank you, sir.
The story is now yours.
Thank you, sir. We will carry it on. You know, as we say, we picking up the torch. You know, we picking up the Danny and trying to do whatever we can do to present ourselves worthy, you know, of the task of doing the damn work.
Oh, I pay attention to him.
Yes. He was not because you know,
Not the camera's rolling, shall I say that he has intervened in my life many times over. I think the moment when I came in contact with this, there was something that led me to that house that day. Yeah,
Well,
you were saying.
I guess I led to the spirit of Danny that created this festival that we do. You know, to as a legacy, you know, to carry on with Danny's work. You know, because he was so far behind being recognized, you know, as some of the other musicians that Danny was just as great as. You know, so
Well, there is so much of the life of jazz, even the great period, that's not yet uncovered. So many stories that you know, didn't get the documentation that the acknowledged greats did in every generation of jazz. Even John Coltrane says that there were many other tenor players, or there were other tenor players that never got it recorded that he admired. So that's just the nature of jazz, and it's the story of America, as Mr. Barker would say. Jazz is the pulse beat and the voice of what's happening day after day, every day.
and before we go any further, before I forget it, I don't know if you knew Sylvia passed. Did you know?
I did not know.
But Sylvia Barker, Danny's daughter, just passed last week.
I didn't.
Yeah, so I spoke
She's
with,
been on my mind.
I spoke with her son, and told her that she went peacefully. You know, she wasn't sick or anything. She
The last report that I heard from Larry, Danny Barker's grandson, was that she still knew that she was Danny and Lou's daughter, and that she still would sing "Don't You Feel My Leg."
But man, we can't. I can't.
She sold me this copy. It says, "To Esposito, the name I'll always remember. Sylvia Barker, the daughter," as she would refer to herself. She didn't want anybody to think that she was, you know, a musician of herself. So she would say, Sylvia Barker, the daughter. She was a terrific woman and quite a story herself. Not a whole lot of people know this, but Danny was an only child. He was surrounded by many, many cousins, but he himself was an only child. Sylvia was an only child as well.
Arizona.
And Larry is an only child.
But for what? I can't. I don't know what else to say, man. Other than thank you. You know, this is a part
Well,
of
you know.
our plan. We will, like Greg said earlier, we will have it presented in the museum. You understand? And, so that people can see, know, because there's a lot of people. I was in New York one time and we talked about Danny Boy. A lot of people didn't know who he was, even though he lived in New York. You know, but we want to bring it to the forefront. We want everybody to know who Danny was and what he stands for here and what he stands for in our hearts. So this is a great representation of you, you know, to thank to give this to the organization. And on behalf of the Banjo Banjo Guitar Festival and the foundation, man, we thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, my friends.
And Chris Heide told me to tell you hello.
I talked to him.
He's doing the letter. Okay. Okay.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you too, my brother. God bless.